we did just get back from Anglin Lake, so we're kind of full of the sun and lake and sky, and want to share some of that with you all. And behind Andrea there's a shot of our morning. We woke up to some rain and to some sun and to a rainbow, and so it was a mixed morning of a lot of changing weather, which was part of the teaching this last week for sure. It was very changeable. And so, and one of my intentions on settling into a nature retreat is to really marinate in nature, in what we all know as one of our beloved teachers, and also to understand nature as a teacher for our own inner nature, that we can touch into the teachings of nature anywhere, because it's our inner nature. It's our true nature. And so we touch it deeply when we go to our sacred places, and each person here will have their own sacred place. And what I think is really, really helpful and important is to begin to understand that it's here in our own body, and that nature is with us wherever we go, and we can touch into that even in the middle of the city. So tonight and one of the things we can do is to, one of the teachings from nature, of course, as we all know this, is that we can strengthen some of the qualities, some of our own inner qualities, through connecting with those qualities in nature. And we know we just come into connection with nature's calm, for example. And, we step out of the car wherever we're going, at the lake or the ocean. Everyone will have our own landscape of kind of connection. We step out of the car there, we see the beauty there, there's some joy that uplifts, and then can be a calming. And so we can turn to these kinds of qualities, the joy and the calm, wherever we are, because it's our inner nature too. And so we have actually a selective attention for the difficult, a selective attention when we sit, or in our lives, our attention goes to the agitation, to the difficult very easily. Our minds are really easily drawn there for good reasons, because we're hardwired to pay attention to the difficult. And so in a way, we need to help our minds also pay attention to the wholesome that is also in our experience, the calm or the peace or the stillness or the joy of nature, which is also in our inner nature. And so tonight I'm going to lead a meditation in one of these qualities that we connect with in nature. And this is good for all of us, wherever we are in the city, so that we can connect here, and also for those of us who's coming back from Anglin Lake, so we can maintain the connection. And so I'm going to lead a meditation helping us look for or sense into any places of calm in the body, any places of stillness in our experience. Of course, this is one of the things we can rest into in nature so deeply. And we can rest into this here, right here in our own inner nature as we turn towards that in meditation. And so, resting into your body, and sensing your body sitting. And we can bring the refuges into our attention to begin, the refuges of the Buddha. And that is a really wonderful teaching connected with nature that we have this inner nature, this inner Buddha, this inner true nature that we can touch, that we can cultivate. And we rest into that inspiration, that remembering. And then we can rest into the Dharma, the teachings. And one major translation for the word Dharma is nature. The Dharma of peace is our own nature. And then we can rest into the third refuge of the community or the Sangha. And so just right now, wherever you are, of course, we rest into the Sangha that's here online with us, these kindred spirits, these kindred hearts, appreciating so much this connection and community. And then let yourself expand your attention to just imagine the space around wherever you are, around the building that you're in. Perhaps you have some trees in your yard. Perhaps there's a tree outside your window that you can see if you're in an apartment. Perhaps you're close to a river. Perhaps we all have sky above us. We all have earth below us. So let your attention widen and sense the larger Sangha. All the earth around you and underneath you, the sky above you, the green living beings that you're breathing with around the building that you're in. The vastness of the landscape if you're on the prairie. Whoever it is you're with, whoever it is your home is beside, let your heart and your imagination open to this wider Sangha. Perhaps you have flowers close by in your garden. And just rest in your appreciation of the Sangha for a moment. This wide Sangha. And bring to mind for a moment a place in nature that you enjoy being. And let that, just the memory of it, just settle into your body. And settling into a sense again of your whole body sitting. This whole body, that through this body we can, through our senses, we can know our interconnection with this larger Sangha right where you are. The element of air in the larger Sangha coming, breathing through you, really. Where does the external air and the internal breath begin? We can sense our interconnection here right through the breath. This teaching of the Buddha that we're not separate. This teaching that points to something larger than our individual self. And we can sense it right here in the breath as the breath is coming in and going out. this mystery that is much larger than we are. And it's riding the ebb and flow of this breath. And if the mind, or when the mind starts to think, that's not a problem, the mind, the attention will come back all by itself. And this movement is another natural ebb and flow, just like the breath. When the mind or the attention comes back, don't have to rush back to the breath, but just in a kind of a kind, gentle way, letting the mind come back to this ebb and flow of the breath. Within this whole body sitting. And we can ask ourselves this question, is there any kind of quiet, kind of pleasantness or joy in the body and the breath right now? Is there a kind of a pleasantness or quiet joy in resting in this breath that breathes all by itself? No effort needed. Is there a quiet joy in simply being present here now for these few minutes? We can let our mind rest from thinking about other things, doing our tasks. We can let ourselves rest here. Sometimes sensing into any kind of small quiet joy can help the system settle a little bit, calm a little bit. And then we can also inquire or look for the places of calm in our experience. Is there a calmness in the sense of the body sitting steady, feet on the floor, supported by the chair? Any sense of steadiness here? Sometimes there's a sense of stillness or calmness at the end of the exhale. When the exhale reaches the end, there is sometimes a little pause. And in that pause, sometimes there can be a sense of stillness, a sense of gathering, a sense of calmness. steadiness. Mm. That may be a place for you, and if it is, sensing into that little pause, not rushing, seeing how the body feels there. And then sometimes an image or a word works for some people. On the exhale, you can whisper the word mountain. And see if there's any response in your body. On the inhale, you can whisper steady. There may be other places of calmness or stillness in your experience. You can rest with any of these that I've offered, or perhaps there's a different sense for you of where stillness, calmness, steadiness can be found in your experience. And turning the mind towards this as your anchor, coming back here when the mind moves away. Just as we close our meditation, sensing again into that which has a quality of calmness or stillness in maybe just some small place in your experience. We can turn our attention here. And as we do that, we can support its growing. Dear friends, just so lovely to be with you. And so one of the things I've been thinking about, or we've talked about this, and we talked about this at Anglin Lake too, is that when we have this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful time in nature, very often what's paired with that is another beautiful quality, and that is that a very particular quality of timelessness. In a way, when we go to nature, often when we go to the lake, when we go for a weekend somewhere, what we're doing is we're stepping out of our regular schedule. And very often we're stepping into a time when we don't have a schedule, right? We're just there. We're going to maybe go for a walk. Maybe we'll read a book by the beach. Maybe we'll do this. We often step out of the schedule. And this is really a big ingredient. And this is very important, especially now that we're here in the city, because this is an ingredient which is under our influence. We can't always go to the lake. We can't always go to the woods. But in the city, we can work with this ingredient of schedule. And, I was thinking today, one day I was up at the lake. I was up with a dear friend, and we were going for a walk. We were at Waskesiu, and we were going to go for a hike. And we got, I don't know, maybe 200 yards down the hike. And there we found this place where there was these big boulders by the lake. Just these big boulders. And both of us looked at these big boulders and we thought, that looks like a good place to sit. We sat down on the boulders, and like 2 hours later, we just got up and walked back the 200 yards back to town. And that hike is memorable for me because it was very time out of time. It was really a time of, we were at the lake, but we even let go of the schedule of the lake. And I think this is an ingredient we can bring in here in the city. For those of us who are coming back from the lake, there's a little bit of kind of constricting back into the schedule in a way, isn't there? So if we remember this ingredient of time, we can support ourselves. Do we need to come back into the schedule quite so much, quite so quickly? And if we're in the city, do we need to maintain it? When I have the capacity to make my own schedule. I work a lot, but I have the capacity to make my own schedule. But I notice that I get so busy and so much going on, so much happening, that I'll make a to-do list and I'll head out into the town, and I can have two experiences with that list. One is really kind of a miserable time, striving to get it all done, and it's like fit it into this. Do I have time? Do I have time to do that one more thing? And if I go out with that, and it's not very much, that's kind of constricted. If I go out on the town with that same list with no time limit, no kind of rush, that same list can become so pleasant. That same to-do list. There's leisureliness about it. There's something about that. So this ingredient of time is really special. And then, of course, the ingredient of nature, which we can also bring in the city. The other day I went to a park and I took my lawn chair. And I have a lawn chair that's got a high back. And I just leaned back and it's full of trees and I had no schedule. It was so delicious. Here's a poem I'm going to read about this. This is a poem, a book of poetry that accompanied us this weekend, Poetry of Presence. And so I'm going to read some poetry tonight from this book. And this is called The Word by Tony Hoagland. Down near the bottom of the crossed out list of things you have to do today, between green thread and broccoli, you find that you have penciled in sunlight. Resting on the page, the word is beautiful. It touches you as if you had a friend, and sunlight were a present they had sent you from some place as distant as this morning, to cheer you up, and to remind you that among your duties, pleasure is a thing that also needs accomplishing. Do you remember that time and light are kinds of love? And love is no less practical than a coffee grinder or a safe spare tire. Tomorrow you may be utterly without a clue. But today you get a telegram from the heart in exile, proclaiming that the kingdom still exists. The king and queen still alive, still speaking to their children, to anyone among them who can find the time to sit out in the sun and listen. And so we know this, each one of us knows this teaching. And I think I have another poem here about this. Yes, I do. I thought of this, of course, at Anglin Lake, but the other day when I was in the park as well, in Saskatoon, with my lawn chair, with all those beautiful trees. And this is a little bit of what I felt. This is When I Am Among the Trees by Mary Oliver. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, especially the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches. They call again, "It's simple," they say, "and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light and to shine." It is easy. I have often thought it's hard because I thought, oh, I have to go away. I have to go for a weekend, at least 3 nights. Let go. And then when I come back, it's like, how can I keep it? How can I? It's hard to go and it's hard to come back. But what our true nature can let us know is that it can be easy here if we take the time and connect. We know this ease, the ease of, it's very clear. When we do go to nature, we do go to the lake, we open the door, what happens? We open the door of the car. I've said this so many times in the last few days, but we open the door of the car and we get that first smell of spruce, and there's a joy and there's a calming, and it's like, oh yeah, that's in our own inner nature. And when we tune into this kind of quiet joy, this kind of quiet joy that can then, actually when we tune in, here's another image from our weekend and an image from the suttas as well. When we like flap our wings like a bird, we flap our wings and put some effort into the practice. We turn to the body, the whole body, we pay attention. We might bring our attention to some quiet joy. Quiet joy is so big in our teachings. It hasn't been emphasized, but it's so big. We turn our attention to the quiet joy of being in the body, the quiet joy of being steady, the quiet joy of the breath, breathing. And there can be a little uplift. And so our part is the effort of turning towards the body, turning towards the practice, putting some sustained attention in. And then the practice can pick us up as if, we're a bird. We flap our wings, and then the practice is the air under the wings. And then we can fly a little bit. And we know this feeling. Letting the practice, letting nature and the practice, our inner nature, support us. And when we do this kind of nourishment can support us in difficult times. Often we go to try to be in a difficult time without the nourishment of the practice. And so it's very helpful to let the practice nourish us. And that can help in the difficult. Can help us be resilient. I have another poem about this. And this is a poem we talked about the hindrances last week, those difficult mind states that can visit the mind like a weather system coming through. And one of the things we can do when a difficult weather system comes through our inner landscape is we can kind of watch and see if we're bracing against it. If we're bracing against the storm, if we're bracing against the wind, if we hate what's here, that's going to cause suffering. If there's a way we can go with it a little bit, if we can allow it a little bit, nourishing ourselves at the same time, but not resisting, in a way like a Tai Chi move, where the difficult comes and we kind of, there it goes. So we didn't push against it. We just kind of moved with it in a way, and it can move on without crushing us. And so that's one of the things we can do when we work with the hindrances, the difficult states of mind, is watch if we're resisting, or if we can allow while supporting ourselves and let the state pass. Here's a poem about this. I have 2 more poems to share with you, this one and one more. This one is about kind of what happens when we get hit by something that's hard, hit by something that's difficult in our weather system. This is called The Mosquito Among the Raindrops, and it's by Teddy Macker. The mosquito among the raindrops It's equivalent to getting hit, say the scientists, by a falling school bus. A hit every 20 seconds. And the mosquito survives. In fact, she doesn't even try to avoid the drops. No zigzagging, no ducking, no hiding under eaves. How does she do it? No resistance to the force. She hitches a ride on the blow, a stowaway on that which brings her down. She becomes one with the drop, knowing that to fly again, she must fall. And so that's one of the ways we can, in a way, use flow with the hindrance, flow with the storms. And we did this week many times, because we have our preferences about the weather when we go to Anglin Lake or we go camping, but they don't always happen that way. And so this year we got a lot of wind. That was kind of the major thing, the major, yeah, the major weather system we got. So sometimes the first big storm that came in, we fortunately have walls. We had tailor-made some vinyl walls that we wrap around the kitchen shelter there, and there's about 5 feet in the middle of clear vinyl so we can see out. And so the storm was coming, and like anxiety was rising, and so we just took a break. We stopped washing the dishes. We sat inside the shelter and just watched the storm and let the storm come, and watched it and felt the strength of it, and then also felt when it passed. It's kind of delicious watching a storm, isn't it? From the inside of a structure that you feel safe and cozy in. And in a way, our mindfulness practice can be that safe, cozy structure. Mindfulness and metta. If we wrap ourselves up in mindfulness, metta, when the storm comes, kind of hold ourselves there and watch the storm as it rises and passes. We can begin to understand that we can survive, we can live through that. And nature is one of the great teachers in this way, because we can watch the external nature do that. And as we do that, our internal nature can synchronize with that. Synchronize with that knowing that we can ride out the storm. We had a lot of weather systems move through this week. One of the other teachings we received was practice in really going with the flow of the weather system. And we can imagine this as the weather system in our internal weather system as well. And this is one of those things that nature helps us with. And we can experience this right here in the city. If we go to the park at some time, pretty much, we could imagine that there could be sun and rain and clouds and coolness and warmth and all together. We can take an hour or two and go to the park, go to the riverside and say, I'm going to hang out here, whatever the weather is, and let my system go with the flow of this weather. Put my jacket on, put my umbrella up, take it down, go with the flow of this weather system. When you're at Anglin Lake, you don't have a choice. So in the city, we can create that kind of experience for ourselves. And so in Anglin, for example, we were doing some meditating, sharing. We were doing some sharing, and about every 10 minutes, I think, that was this morning, but every 10 minutes we'd move outside because it wasn't raining, to alleviate the so we could have some fresh air. And then about 10 minutes later, when it started to rain, we just pick up our lawn chairs and move back inside for another 10, 15 minutes. And then a little bit later, oh yeah, it stopped, outside we go. And it kind of went like that. It was kind of like musical chairs for, oh, it's not raining. Let's go outside and do something. Oh, okay. And you know what? You just kind of get into that flow and something happens inside you. Something starts to go with the flow inside you. And you can be surprised by what emerges. You can be surprised by the capacity to go with that flow. You can be surprised by the peace that can come in the midst of change. And so one more poem about this. It's about this because we're all in a river of change. We're all in a river unfolding, every moment unfolding. And it can surprise us. If we notice inside ourselves, do we go with the flow of this or do we brace against it? We can have our preferences, but noticing if we brace and push, what happens? And if we can go with the flow, still, of course, not being a doormat. It's not like we're going to lay down and not be proactive with our needs and what we wish, but to go with the flow in a way of this unfolding. And then the thing about nature and the thing about the park, the park and the city, the thing about nature is that it helps us to do this in an embodied way. I can think in my mind, oh yeah, I should go with the flow. I could buy myself a card, a Hallmark card, put that on my wall, go with the flow. But nature helps us to know it in an embodied way. And if we let ourselves know it in an embodied way, that's a different level of knowing. Often we try to do things, we try to let go, we try to go with the flow from our cognitive mind. And if we rest into the body knowing, then that's the doorway, more so, I think, into letting go, into the flow, into these understandings. And so here we go. This is just a 4-line poem, so I might read it twice. This is called Fluent by John O'Donohue. I would love to live like a river flows, carried by the surprise of its own unfolding. I would love to live like a river flows, carried by the surprise of its own unfolding. So we're working with our inner nature, and we're all here in the Sangha together doing this. And so I encourage us all to take the opportunity now that we're here back in the city, and we have the opportunity to deepen into this true nature right here. I really recommend lawn chair, all your ingredients, and go to the park for the afternoon. Stay even if it rains. And mix those two ingredients of time. Time isn't, I love that line in that poem, isn't time a kind of love? So take time and spend it in nature here, right here in your own on your own patio, on your own balcony, in your own neighborhood, and see what surprises can unfold. And so, dear friends, it's lovely to be with you tonight. We'll dedicate the merit of our practice. May the merit of our time together, the merit of our practice together, touch our own hearts, enliven our own inner nature, and ripple out to be a cause or condition for the liberation of all beings everywhere, including the beings of nature that are around us right this very moment. This living being of breath, this living being of the earth, the living water that flows through our veins and entire body, the living fire from the sun which nourishes and feeds our body directly with its warmth and through the food that we eat. May this nature, who we are, just radiate out and also touch the nature around us right now. All the plants around in your home, all the plants nearby, the trees, the shrubs, the flowers, the river that you can imagine in your neighborhood. All of these friends waiting to connect more deeply with you. Each one of them. Robin Wall Kimmerer says that attention is a form of reciprocity with the natural world. Simply giving attention is a kind of giving and receiving the gifts with an open heart. So just with our attention, we cultivate a relationship with nature, and we can do this in our very neighborhoods. So may our practice ripple out, touch all the friends in our neighborhood, and be a cause for liberation for all beings. Thank you so much, friends. So thank you so much, friends, for coming and sharing this evening together, and sending every good wish to each one of you. Please take the Sangha with you and enjoy your inner nature this week.